Hey everyone, welcome to the Man Behind the Back channel. In today's video, I'll be discussing CGC slabs, the ins and outs of the submission process, purchasing slabs, and the all-round question of whether it is even worth slabbing comics through CGC anymore. So for those who have clicked onto this video and aren't aware of what CGC is, it is a company which grades slabs, which is encasing your comic, and presses your comic, as well as other features to your pop culture merch, such as comics, cards, and magazines. However, today's video will solely be on CGCing of comics. I, as a collector, am pretty new to comics and even newer to CGCs. I've been collecting comics for around a year or so now, as my love for comics really kicked off once I moved into uni, where there is a fantastic comic store called The Final Frontier. I highly recommend dropping in if you ever pass by. As for CGCs, I've only been collecting them for around 6 months and submitting for about 3 or 4 months. So on the whole, I am pretty new to the comic book community, but I feel by being so new, it will help for other new comic book collectors to feel more at ease when dealing with CGC. So let's get on to the question of, is CGC worth it? Firstly, let's talk about the process of CGC. Just a disclaimer, this will be for the UK London office, as I am from the UK. However, if you aren't from the UK, stick around as I will cover the other points to the question later on. So the process of CGC may come across as rather convoluted, but once you've done it once, it is a pretty simple process to follow. Firstly, you go onto the website and go on to submissions. From there, you scroll down and select comics. From here, you'll have the option to either grade or press your comic. In the US, there will be other options such as signature series, in-house private signings. However, I'm going to do a separate video on that, so make sure to subscribe so you can keep up to date. Once you've selected either grading or pressing, you have the option to insert the comic's name, so you can select which one it is you're submitting. And then from here, you have some additional options such as pressing, which I'd highly recommend for the best grade outcome, a custom label, as well as the option for higher resolution encapsulations. As you can see on the screen here now, this is my most recent and current submission to CGC with all the additional perks added onto it. Finally, it asks how you want to submit it. I would recommend sending it yourself through either Every, InPost, or whatever is your local provider, as it allows you to make sure the contents are fully wrapped. For a video on how to package your submissions, I've left the link in the description below. Finally, it comes to the return shipping. Either you arrange for CGC to return it to you, or you can collect for free at the London store. Once all this is done, you come to your cart. This is the one thing I think is amazing about CGC. This is that although you're essentially purchasing the submission, you will not be charged till each process is done. For example, in the UK, if you were to do a grading and a pressing, you'd get 2 separate invoices after each one of the 2 processes were complete. One other thing I should bring up about the process is that the turnarounds can be pretty inconsistent. However, at the moment, it is around 2 to 4 weeks per grading, and then the same on top for pressing. So you're looking around a month or so before your submission will be able to be collected or sent back, which, considering how bad it was a couple of months ago to a year ago, I think this is pretty consistent and a pretty decent turnaround. Pricing may be a concern for many of you debating if you're going to get your comics slabbed by CGC. Just to give you a rough estimate, let's say you get your comic pressed and a high resolution case and a custom label. That will come to about £50–60, not including handling fees. Then obviously, if you want to get it shipped back to you by CGC, that is around another £50. So in total, you're looking at around £120 if you then add on the handling fees, which to me isn't too bad, especially if you get it collected or get them just to send it back through a postal service. That, of course, isn't protected, but is a lot cheaper. So the question is it worth that price? For me personally, it varies. For example, if you're grading to solely resell, you'd need to be sending in a comic which has a high value as a comic alone. For example, my most recent submission, being the Niagara Falls variant of Amazing Spider-Man 300, which the comic itself is a key issue, which essentially are the ones you want to be sending in if you want to be making a profit through CGC. This comic alone sells for around £100, but this is of course also depends on the grade of the comic, as it is all good and well comparing sold prices of CGCs where the grade of that certain CGC was a 9.8, yet the one you sent off comes back as an 8.5. That is unlikely to sell or make a profit to the extent of the ones you've been comparing it to. So therefore, I feel if you are in it for a profit, you really need to make sure that it is a comic which is in demand and that the grade will be worth getting it submitted for. However, if you are someone who is in it not for monetary value, then I would say that it is worth getting it done if you want a cool and well-known display case for one of your favourite comics. I've done this for a few of my comics, as I'm showing on the screen now, just because they mean so much to me and my collection. However, there are a few cheaper alternatives, such as plastic casing, which you can find on Amazon or eBay, which is about a tenth of the price. However, it doesn't come with that prestige of CGC. So for me personally, I'd always go CGC. But I'd understand if you just want it to be in a display case, it's probably a much more rational idea to get the casing off Amazon or eBay, because you can probably get about 10 of those cases for the price of one CGC submission. As well as this, it can sometimes be a lot cheaper to buy or bid on your favourite comic CGCs through eBay, as you can sometimes find really good deals, such as this signed Batman 612 CGC by Jim Lee, which sells for around £200 to £300, but I was able to get it for just £85 on eBay bids. Personally, I would say the best way of buying CGCs is through bidding on them on eBay, as that's the best way to get the best deal, as many people that sell CGCs when it's a buy now tend to overvalue them or tend to not actually go for what the market is selling them for. So the best way to buy CGCs is definitely to bid on them on eBay. And sometimes this can actually be cheaper than doing the CGC process yourself, plus you get the rare comic as well. So it really does come down to whether you want to be the person that submits the CGC yourself or if you just want to own them outright. As if that's the case, I'd definitely say going down the eBay bidding route is the best option for you. So therefore, it is really up to you whether you think it is worth submitting to CGC. As like I've stated, it will cost you a lot more than just the CGC process itself if you want to be able to flip the CGC, as the comic itself will have to be worth something, and then it may also be cheaper just to buy that comic already slabbed off eBay, such as bidding, where you may be able to get a deal like I did with the signed Jim Lee Batman issue. However, if you're also like me and you enjoy just having a CGC for your favourite comics, then in my opinion, it's the best place to get your comic graded and slabbed, so therefore it's definitely worth it. But obviously this sort of hobby is quite expensive, so the alternative route of maybe just getting plastic casing is definitely a viable option. And for those wanting to find out where you can get them, I will leave some options in the description below. I hope this video gave a bit more of an insight and understanding on what CGC is and whether it is worth doing. Obviously, this is all subjective and the prices of CGC may change once this video is out. But overall, I'd say CGC as a company is definitely worth submitting to, and that it is always worth getting a pressing with it, regardless of the reason for the submitting, just so you get the best possible grade. If this video did help you in any way, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and leave any questions in the comments below. I will try to do my best to get back to all of them. Until the next one, guys, peace.